Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining our webinar. My name is Garima Tokcham, and with me today from Akasha, we have Gautam Tokcham, who's our CTO, and Rajesh Dubey, who heads up our Amazon practice. Today's webinar is planning for AWS. So you can see the agenda there in front of you. But essentially, as we work with customers, we've noticed that there are certain unique advantages that Amazon has that causes these customers to pick Amazon over other public clouds. So today we'll be going over some of those unique advantages. And then the remaining webinar will focus on talking about how our technology helps you plan for Amazon. In other words, how do we help you identify the suitable AWS templates and services, and how you can compare the costs with other clouds. And if you're doing a lift and shift, or if you're doing a new deployment, we show you the different methodologies for planning for AWS. Then we'll go into a demo of two of our products, and we'll end with a real-world customer case study that ties all of that together. So once again, welcome everybody. I do see some familiar names in our attendee list, so really nice to see all of you there. This webinar is being recorded, so settle back and just focus on what we're showing you. As you have questions, do put them in the questions area or the chat area, and we will attend to them as and when we feel it's necessary. So with that, I will hand the microphone over to Gautam.
Thank you, Garima. Thank you for the setup here. And so without any further ado, I'm just going to dive into our agenda. Right. So before we talk about unique advantages of AWS over other clouds, let's talk a little bit about the trends that we see happening as we work with all of our customers. From when we look at the cloud operators, what we definitely see now is a very strong enterprise focus emphasis. In other words, a couple of years ago, most of the Amazon, Google was really targeted to born in the cloud companies or new startups, and in a few departments here and there within the enterprise. But now the focus is on the full-blown enterprise focus. As a result, there's a lot of work being done in manageability, security, and obviously cost management is a big part of it, and also the recognition by certain cloud operators that just virtual machines by itself may not meet the requirements of the enterprise, and so companies like IBM and Oracle are offering a bare metal service, and in turn, Amazon is also offering dedicated service and so on and so forth. And also, the other thing that we see is that there's a lot of focus on onboarding. How do you help the enterprise transition from the on-prem to the cloud as well? So we see a lot of those activities all around. In addition, of course, addition of new technologies, PaaS offerings, containers, AI, machine learning, IoT, etc. Lots of platforms being deployed in the cloud that customers have access to. The other thing that we see happening in the enterprise is that the next generation of applications that enterprises are building is obviously very much, we see containers and being talked about all over the place. At the same time, enterprises are looking to actually enhance their applications by integrating with data that they do not own, third-party data. And a lot of clouds are beginning to offer those things as well. Others, like the whole notion of serverless functions, containers, everything is prevalent all over the place, and everybody targeted towards the enterprise. So with that being in play, what is Amazon up to? Obviously, we all know that Amazon was really started with the SMEs and startups for public cloud. Now, obviously, huge enterprise focus going on right now. Their strategy is innovation. First, to offer new category-defining features and services. They are the leaders on offering new services and categories. Deep knowledge of how the platforms are working in the cloud, in the customers, and because of the vast installed presence of customers of all types, in the cloud, they have the ability to understand how customers are using it and provide new services based around how the cloud is being used. Ease of adoption is another one which they're very focused on. Lots of certification and training programs, lots of activities in that regard as well. So that's kind of, they are obviously the leader in the marketplace, and they continue to be. We don't see them falling behind anybody at the moment. Right?
So to summarize, I think what we've observed from our customers is that not only does Amazon offer a huge variety of templates and offerings for different kinds of companies, but they are now newly actively focused on the enterprise. So they're offering onboarding solutions and ease of adoption. So that's kind of the summary. Yeah.
And to your point, another thing that I want to add is that when we talk to our customers, the enterprises who are using our technologies, one of the things we do ask is, okay, what are you looking for in the cloud? Why are you looking for things in the cloud? And obviously, the access to the IaaS platform is a given. It's a table stakes by now. But really, what they're looking for is additional access to additional technologies, new technologies that's available only in the cloud. It's so much easier to tap into machine learning or AI technologies in the cloud as opposed to building your own stack of those solutions on-prem. Right, so that's the other thing that we see. So if you took a big, broad scope of a look around, the big players are Google, Azure, IBM, Oracle, and VMware. We will talk a little bit about VMware later in a few minutes as well. In Google, it's about the most efficient data centers and IaaS platforms. So they're able to squeeze out a lot of cost out of their infrastructure, which they are able to pass on to the customer. So they are relatively inexpensive. When you look at it, apple to apples, they tend to be cost efficient. They have their own global network and sheer technology brilliance, commitment to open source, and everything in Google now is AI and machine language being built everywhere in every area as well. So customers by definition are already tapping into that. Azure, enormous leverage of the installed customer base. Office 365 has been a phenomenal success, and they're also rapidly introducing new technologies. Very recently, ever since the new CEO has come, is cloud first, and a lot of cloud-related activities going on there. IBM, very solid understanding of the enterprise, very focused on hybrid. And the interesting thing is that IBM competes with all of them, but at the same time, they partner with them. So they have recognized that large enterprises may want to tap into Google or Amazon or Azure. At the same time, they have offerings which are attractive to the enterprise, such as bare metal cloud and such. So they provide everything in one shop. Oracle, again, very focused on hybrid cloud. One of the biggest things they've done this year is really going to the enterprise and actually converting on-prem installed infrastructure into a cloud architecture. Basically taking over the entire infrastructure and converting to more of a utility model, and they're responsible for hardware, software, everything. So in other words, you're getting the cloud on-prem, and they have access to the Oracle cloud to expand if they need to. VMware, lots of news has been going on around that. VMware is going to be announcing VMware being available on AWS. We are partnering with that. We are in NDA with them, so except for the fact that we will be supporting VMware on AWS as yet another cloud, and we'll be announcing at VMworld. That's about all we can say at this time, right?
And we will definitely be doing another webinar in a few weeks, so stay tuned.
So let's talk about transitioning to the cloud. We've discussed about what's happening there, but really let's dive into what we are here for today. So when we look at enterprise, and enterprise are considering movement to the cloud, obviously given that the technologies are interesting, the platforms are available, but then, okay, all right, I got it. I want to go to Amazon. What do I need to do next? There are fundamentally three questions that come up. What is needed for me to replace what I have on-prem with something in Amazon? So that's the first thing I need to understand. And oh, by the way, if I want to build a brand new application that comprises of AI and all of the other elements, what would I need in the cloud? And then, by the way, how much does it cost? So unless I get these questions answered, even though I want to move to the cloud, I'm kind of held up because I don't know what I need and how much it's going to cost me. So that's really where we come into play. So, okay, oops, all right, what's happening here? We have, okay, so let's talk about this. All right, okay. That's it. So cloud offerings. Let's just talk about AWS. AWS by in EC2 itself, there are like 100, about 100 plus products available in EC2. And when you start thinking about the permutations and combinations of licensing and discounts and so on and so forth, then the permutations combination becomes like hundreds of thousands of options, right? And then you talk about the other non-EC2 products. There are about 300,000 of those. So, and then you look at the other clouds, and then suddenly you're dealing with having to choose what you need from like almost 1 million plus product items. It becomes a daunting problem. And then, by the way, new products are being added every week, right? That's the other challenge. And then let's talk about the discounting and the licensing. So there are different ways of purchasing. So now, not only do I have a challenge of figuring what I need, but what is the one discounting, or what is the purchasing, what's the agreement type that makes sense for me as well, right? So that's where the challenge comes in, right? And that's where we, at this point, we are going to talk about how Akasha helps you with that. So
yes. Let's do one thing here really quickly. Everybody that's on the webinar, we're going to launch a poll, and let's get a sense for where our attendees are, and that'll help us emphasize certain advantages over other advantages or features. So if you could take a few minutes, a few seconds to just answer that. Okay, I'm going to close this in 10 seconds, so let's get everybody in. All right, I think that is it. And I'm just going to share the results with you. Interesting. So the majority of our attendees are migrating existing infrastructure, followed very closely by people that are doing both. And a small number is deploying new applications. And this, by the way, is actually representative of the whole industry as pattern. Where in the past, most people that were deploying to Amazon were deploying new applications, but now we're seeing a lot of migrations of existing infrastructure. And so there is a tendency to do both, migrate and deploy. So this is ideal for us because we have two products, one that does lift and shift and another that does new deployments.
Right.
And so we can talk about that.
Right. And just to clarify, when Garima says we have two products for lift and shift and new deployment, we're talking about the planning part of it, right?
Correct.
So what is Akasha and what do we do? So we are in the business of helping enterprise transition to the cloud. We help enterprises determine what would be needed to replace what you have on-prem, what would be needed to build out a hybrid solution or a brand new solution. And we do this for Amazon, Azure, Google, IBM, Oracle, and we'll be adding AWS and AWS VMware very shortly as well. And we do this very rapidly, a few minutes, tens of minutes to a few hours, depending upon the size of your environment. And we'll go about talking a little more about how we do it so that you'll know that how quickly we can do this as well. During the demo, you'll see it. All right? So with that, Garima, can you tell a little bit more about the company?
Sure. So as an introduction, for those of you that are new to our messaging here, we were founded in 2014. We have two locations. Our headquarters are in Santa Clara, California, and we have a development arm in Pune in India. We are funded by Thai Launchpad as well as several angel investors. we have partnerships with all the major cloud providers, so Amazon, Azure, Google, IBM Bluemix, Oracle Cloud, and VMware. So you will find us on the marketplaces of all of these vendors, and in particular VMware, like Gautam mentioned earlier, they're busy launching VMware on Amazon. You may have seen some early messaging coming out of VMware. We are participating with them very closely to build out the planning piece of VMware on Amazon, and in a few weeks we'll be doing a launch of it, so we will do a webinar about it then too. Next. Our offerings. So a lot of you that are on this webinar are very familiar with our lift and shift product that we're calling AIM. So we have two SaaS solutions and a services arm. These are our offerings. The first SaaS solution is called AIM, and this is for lift and shift environments, and this essentially discovers your on-prem environment, its configuration and usage, and then maps to equivalent environments in the cloud. So we map to equivalent as well as right-sized environments. And what's unique about AIM is that we also show you the hidden costs. So items such as network usage and I/O, these are things you don't necessarily think about very carefully on-prem, but these are for-charge items that hit you with surprises in the cloud. So what we do with AIM is we show you exactly what the cost of those items are. So that's AIM, and that is for lift and shift migrations, or rather planning for lift and shift migrations. And then we have a new product called ACM, or the Akasha Cloud Modeler. And what this does is it allows you to model a new environment in the cloud. So you will see in the demo that our intuitive dashboard lets you just pick what you want to build: compute, network, storage, AI, VPN, or databases, or messaging, or support. You just pick what you're thinking of building, and our product ACM then just gives you the output of what you will need to order in the cloud and what it will cost you. So those are our two SaaS solutions that you will see a demo later on. Now, another new offering is our services, which is what we're calling ACE, or the Akasha Cloud Experts. Because we work with cloud resources day in and day out, we have a lot of information on our fingertips that often takes our customers many days of research to determine. So what they can now do is lean on our ACEs, who will handhold them through the entire planning process. So these are our offerings.
So Garima, when it comes to ACE, we actually do more than planning, right? So we obviously help our customers. So by the way, our software is designed that very simple to use. You could use it by yourself. But there are times when you need some hand-holdings. Our ACE is available to actually help you run both AIM and ACM for you. At the same time, if you want, additional beyond just the initial planning, where you want to actually do detailed planning, the project management, and the actual act of migration, we can do that as well with our ACE team.
Got it.
Right. All right. Let's talk a little bit about our customers.
Yeah. So these are just some of our customers. In our detailed demos, I go into each one of them and the stories around them. We don't have time for that today, so if you're interested in learning more about how these people use our products, feel free to reach out and we'll have a one-on-one conversation with you. Today, we will be going deep into Apache Corporation and how they used our AIM product and the benefits they got. So let's move forward.
All right. So this picture represents a very quick architectural diagram or representation of how our software works. So on the top, you see that we have all of these clouds pointing to us. So we essentially have software and services that run to collect the latest and greatest prices and product offering from all of these cloud operators. So we are very up to date into exactly what's the latest offering from Amazon, what's their price, and so on and so forth. So we maintain that in our system. Secondly, on the left-hand side, we have what we call as collector. It's a small software, lightweight software that goes and does a discovery of what you have on-prem. We have a collector designed for VMware and also from Hyper-V. And should you have other platforms outside of those two, then we publish the templates in CSV file format, which you can populate and give us, and then you can do the modeling. So the collector itself is a very small piece of software. It doesn't require you to open any ports or anything. It's just you just run it within your data center, and depending upon the size of your environment, the collector can collect all the data that's needed within 5 to 10 minutes or more, depending upon the size. And what it collects is configuration information of all your hosts, configuration information about all your virtual machines, storage, and utilization information for 1 year. We do not collect any proprietary information such as IP addresses, username, password, or any of that sort. And what the collector does is it runs, and then it spits out 4 CSV file, which is human readable. You can take a look at it, and once that's spit out, then you would basically upload that into a SaaS platform, just like you would load up a file, a photograph into any of the cloud storage, whatever, right? Once that is ingested, then now there's 2 things done. We do a couple of things. One of them obviously is looking at what you have on-prem and then matching it to the equivalent elements in the cloud that you would need in order to replace what you have on-prem. And that's really what it does. And then, of course, when you're transitioning from on-prem to cloud, you are going to need a lot more additional cloud-related services beyond the servers and the storage. And our software allows you to actually add all of those things to create the full environment that's necessary for you to build your cloud infrastructure. So with that, as an intro about how the product works, I'm going to dive in straight into a demo, right? So time for a demo, all right? Okay, so, all right. So here I have just logged into our SaaS. This is where it is. Once you log in, this is the first screen you would see. And you can see that we have AIM and ACM here as well. So I'm going to start with AIM, which is really designed for mapping what you have on-prem with on-cloud. Oops, okay, I got to log in again. I've been logged in for a while. Here we go. So once you log into AIM, basically, first and foremost you would do is manage source data. So here I have a couple of sources that I've already imported, but if I'm starting brand new, you would download our collector from here, and then this is a user guide as well, and you would run that on-prem in any Windows system that you have. And then once you have run that, it will spit out 4 files, which you will just basically upload here. Once you pick that, and you would give a name to that particular source so that it makes sense. So I have a couple of sources already in place. So I'm going to start using what I call it my AMG, right? So right off the bat, I have in this case, I've got like 8 hosts and 109 VMs. It's a fairly small environment. And right off the bat, this picture shows me what is currently costing me on-prem based on certain, and I'll talk about how we come up with that on-prem cost. And then it shows me the cost of running the entire 109 virtual machines. If I were to run everything in the cloud, this is a quick snapshot of how much it would cost me. So this is on-prem, this is Amazon, Azure, Bluemix, Google, and Oracle as well. Now, up to this point, you are free. Till this point, our software is completely free, so you can go ahead and upload everything and see the high-level information. Once you start figuring out, okay, more than likely you're not going to be considering moving the entire set. You need a lot more information than just the cost element. So once you get into that, you will actually start doing the modeling activity. So you click here, you do the modeling activity, and first and foremost, you're going to select what systems do you want to model for. So I can select by the host, by virtual machines, or sometimes by a type of OS. I could look at type of OSs. These are the different OSs that I found in your environment, but just to make my life easy, I'm just going to go by the host. So these are the 8 hosts. This is kind of this, and I pick any one of this host. And what it will show me is all the virtual machines that is currently inside that particular host. And I can select one at a time, or I can select all of them, and then add to my modeling group. So this is what I want to model for. Then this list will show up here. I can, oops, I don't want this one. I could remove it, or I'll just leave it alone because I do want to model for this. So once I've selected, in other words, this is my basket of elements that I want to model for. Then I go click and compare costs. So now at this point, our software is doing the mapping of all of these, the 10 or 15 virtual machines that I've selected, and it's done the calculation for that for the different clouds as well. You see that list here. This is a quick view of, oh, okay, IBM public is fairly inexpensive, but the private is rather expensive. Amazon Reserve instance seems to be the most cost-effective one at this point for these guys, or Google Custom. And you will see all of them listed here in a little more detail, right? So then the next thing you would do is click, okay, so I'm currently planning for Amazon, so I'm going to pick on Amazon On Demand for my current infrastructure. I click there, and then now this is what the infrastructure, this is the 15 virtual machines, this is a summary of how much it's going to cost me in Amazon, but this is really what you're looking for. Each virtual machine, here's the VM ID, this one maps to a T2 medium Windows. This one maps to the T2 medium Windows. This one maps to T1 Lars, and so on and so forth. Now this column is as is. As is means that based on the configuration of the virtual machine, the number of vCPUs, the amount of memory, and so on and so forth, has been mapped. But more than likely, most VMs are probably not using the entire resource. So what we do is, based on the actual activity that we see over 1 year for this system, we say, hey, this is over provision. You could actually get away with very small system. This is so unused that you could actually go with a nano here as opposed to a medium size. So you will see that the elements in the blue colors, these are what we call as right sized. This is based on utilization. This is the ones which would work, and this is what we recommend to save cost. Then you will see all the details about it, and you can. And by the way, there will be times when you say, you know what? Although this virtual machine VM5724 looks maps to a T2 medium, I actually want this to be a bigger system. Oops, what's going on here? It's not responding. Oh, there you go. And I could say, you know what? I intend, once it goes to the cloud, I actually intend to use this particular machine, application running on this virtual machine very heavily. So I am going to pick an extra Lars instead. And notice that the moment I do that, the price of this element has increased here. However, our right size element does not change. Okay, so you can actually do what-if planning based on this. Once you're done with figuring out what's needed, the next element is, okay, I got my virtual machines mapped out. I know what virtual machines I need from the cloud, but what else do I need from the cloud? This is really where what we call as advanced services that you would need. In addition to the virtual machines, you probably need to figure out, okay, I have to consider data transfer out because there's a fee associated with that. So I'm going to be transferring 11 terabytes of data a month. And then let's look at what else. Oh, I want CloudWatch. And I want CloudWatch turned on for all of these machines, and I'm going to turn on the detail monitoring, and I want a load balancer, and I want, let's see, I will add this. So and so forth. There's a long list of products that Amazon provides that will be listed here, which is relevant for you as you're transitioning to the cloud. So I picked these three elements. I can actually change the quantity that, so actually I intend to do two of those, two elements of those, and then for CloudWatch, I want to monitor all the 15 servers, and I want, let's say, a couple of load balancers, right? And then So these are the additional services that I would need to run my cloud. So I could keep on adding a lot of this in this. Then comes, okay, I am now thinking of this entire migration as a project. So I have to present this to my management as a project. So I maybe need to maybe spend so let's say a couple of $8,000 for migration, and there may be some other costs that they may come up. So I'm going to put $1,000 here. And by the way, now that here's an interesting one. Now that my servers are no longer in my data center, they are now in the cloud, I may have to buy some VPN or MPLS circuit for which I would have to spend some money just because I moved my servers to the cloud now. So let's say that I'm buying some MPLS circuit for $750 a month. Maybe I need to hire a couple of administrators, and then it's $80 per hour, and so on and so forth. And then let's see that I plan for another couple of $100 of other costs that I haven't thought about. So that's it. Once you do that, now you will see the entire report. These are the virtual machine. This is currently how much it's costing on-prem. These are the summaries of the cost on demand. This is the one-time migration cost. This is my ongoing cost that I would incur. This is again the summary. We do show, if you pick Amazon, we actually show both reserve instance as well as on-demand. Reserve instance is for 1 year paid upfront. And then you will see all of the list of all the virtual machines the configuration of what you are planning to migrate. And this is the actual bill of materials that you would actually take as you move to the cloud. This is what you need to plan for, to instantize. Then these are the other additional costs that you're likely to, you think you would incur for additional storage, the CloudWatch, load balancers, and so on and so forth. This is the additional other monthly network access and other costs, and one-time costs as well. So you will see all of these here. Then I can save this project, and I can give it a name. So my new cloud plan. And I save this, and I can export this to a PDF file, or I can export this to an XLS file as well. So that kind of ends the demo of AIM. So what I did was basically I showed you how you would go and grab the information from your on-prem, how you would upload it, and once you upload it, how do you select the items that you want to model for, and then how you add additional services that Amazon provides, and then you add additional costs such as project, migration costs and such, and then you have your everything that you need. So you got your cost, you got your bill of materials. Then, any questions arising about AIM at this time, Karima?
Well, okay, there is one question I think we can address here really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So this is about the on-prem
discovery.
Yeah.
Okay.
So can you quickly touch upon what it discovers? The question is, what does the on-prem collector discover?
Sure. Okay. So the one, first and foremost, unlike any other discovery elements, we do not have our software running for weeks and weeks to find out what's going on. It's a one-time go and grab. And the reason why we can do that is because our collector designed for VMware, vCenter keeps all the data, right? So vCenter keeps the data of all the hosts, all the configurations, all the virtual machines, all the storage, and also utilization and activity of CPU consumption, memory consumption, disk activity, network activity. It keeps the data for a long time. So we just go talk to vCenter and grab the data for the last 1 year for utilization, and then we grab the data for host configuration, virtual machine configuration, and storage configuration, and it gets output into a CSV file. Again, depending upon the size of your environment, if it's like 100 servers, it will take about 3 or 4 minutes. If you're talking about 5,000 servers, it may take an hour plus. And there is, once the CSV files are created, all you have to do is upload. So there's no requirement for you to open a port, and nothing of that sort.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
All right. So let's talk about ACM. What's ACM designed for? ACM is designed for actually when I'm thinking, okay, I want to build a brand new solution that in the cloud. So what we do here is that what is available in the cloud across all the 5 or 6 clouds that we talked about today, we have collected all of the offerings from every one of them. We've created the categories of them, and then you can start picking stuff that you need. So let's say, like we start with, I'm here showing all the different categories. I can start showing with the compute. Okay, everything I need to do, I'm going to have some compute VMs. Then I'm going to add some containers. I want to do some serverless compute. And then, I want some dedicated host as well for my solution. And then for storage, I want some block storage. I want some, object storage, and so on. And I can go pick, and lots of products being tracked here. So in the interest of moving the demo forward, I'm just going to pick those and move on. So as soon as you pick it, so first thing you see here, as you can see, is that we generate a table right off the bat. So if it's compute VMs in Amazon, it's called EC2, virtual machines in Azure, virtual servers, public in Bluemix, compute engine, compute shapes in Oracle. Registry, a lot of them are free, and in compute, serverless compute, it's called Lambda in Amazon. So you basically, right off the bat, what you will see is what is the equivalent, what is the product from each of the cloud that meets that particular component that I'm looking for. Once I go there, I actually once to configure it. So for the virtual machines, I say, okay, 4 CPUs and let's say 24 GB of RAM. OS is Linux. Machine type is general purpose. Memory optimizer is going to pick general purpose. Compute registry, container registry is basically everybody. If there's no parameters required, or if it's free, it will just show that, and you will see that some information written about all of them here. Serverless compute, you do require some configuration. So every instance of a serverless compute, let's say the memory requirement is 128 megabytes, and I am executing it for like 2 seconds, and I'm going to execute like 20 million times a month. And then let's see, dedicated host. I want some dedicated host. I want 8 CPUs, and I want 64 GB of RAM. And you will see notes about each one of those as well. Storage blocks, storage. Let's say that I am going to have 2 terabytes. And storage type, I'll say general purpose. Object storage, I'm just going to say 4 terabytes. All right. Then I go compare at this point, and basically modeling at this point. And now for what I needed, it's interesting that Amazon has a high price, but don't go by these numbers directly, because it is possible that some of these companies are not providing what Amazon is providing. So that would be the reason why Amazon looks so big. So for compute, this is what it is. These are the different costs from each one of them. This is the monthly cost, this is the yearly cost. For registry, there's no cost associated. For serverless compute, you will see all of these costs here. And then dedicated hosts. So now, the reason why Amazon was showing dedicated host was because there is no dedicated host offering from the other guys, whereas Amazon does. So that's why Amazon looked big. And the block storage is there, and then the storage, object storage, and so on and so forth. Now this is a summary of it. Now you can go to details about each one of these products. So for instance, like for the virtual machine that we picked, the instance type based on the configuration I provided was these. Now I have the ability to override this. For instance, in sometimes IBM, they might say, okay, hey, instead of these virtual machines, I'm going to, it might be better to actually pick something else. So you can actually override any one of these things as you compare, and so you can overwrite any one of these and see how it works out, right? We have given the maps based on what the configuration was entered, and so on, and you can override it. Okay, so dedicated host, that's the only, it's not available from the others, it's available from Amazon. And block storage is available from all parties. This is what you'll get. You know, this is the actual cost from each one of them. You can actually look at them side by side and compare them. And you can go on and on. And I can save this project and come back. And when I save this project, it's going to spit out all of this thing in a PDF or an XLS format. So with this, I can actually design my, by picking up the right elements, I can design my solution. And the good thing is that I can design a solution for all clouds simultaneously. And I can compare them across. And I could start with, like, if you notice, what I did was I took some basic baseline storage and servers and added a few things. And then tomorrow, I could use that baseline because I've saved it, and I can add on machine learning or others and kind of keep on building my solution in steps as well. So that's really what this product does. It allows you to kind of simulate or design your solutions and compare it across the cloud in one single pane of glass. So with that, I'm going to hand over back to Garima again.
Okay. All right. So we gave you a quick sense of what's unique about Amazon, and then we gave you a demo of two of our SaaS solutions, one that does planning for lift and shift migrations, and the other that does planning for new deployments in the cloud. But what's cool is we'll tie all of that together into the story of Apache Corporation and how they were able to get benefits out of AIM. So as a backstory, Apache Corporation needed to move their ERP application to the cloud. And they spent many days parsing through cloud price books, and yet they couldn't determine which was most cost effective, mainly because, you know, sometimes you're comparing apples and oranges. They eventually found their way to us, and we had discussions with their cloud architect who was leading the effort on their end. What he told us was that he was looking at VirtuStream and CenturyLink as two of the cloud options, and we said, how did you pick those two options? And he said it was something that their ERP provider had suggested to them. So we worked with him. He bought our licenses. We discovered his environment, which was over 1,600 virtual machines. And then he did some modeling, and he finally started to pay more and more attention to Amazon for many reasons. One being that Amazon's costing appeared to be really attractive. And then the other being that Amazon had many services that were particularly suited for his ERP application. So even though he wasn't thinking about Amazon to begin with, after using AIM, he thought that Amazon could be a good solution. So the results that we produced for him, or rather he actually produced himself because he did the work himself at this point, was a chart that did the comparison of on-prem versus in-cloud. And then he also got the comparison for different clouds. Now, this is very useful because when he was doing this analysis, a very important priority for him was to be able to show his management what his decision was based on actual data. So until then, without our product, you know, he was doing a lot of back-of-the-envelope calculations. But with our product, because we gave him the per VM mapping for more than 1,000 virtual machines, he was able to confidently answer his management as to what the costs will be. Now, this is not the end of the story, he went back to Amazon and he said that he was exploring Amazon. So they got engaged with him, and they gave him their cost assessments or their estimates. And what was eyebrow raising here was that Amazon's cost assessment was a good $30,000 lesser than the cost assessment he had gotten from AIM. So that caused him to pause, and he came back to both companies, to Amazon and to us, and he said, why is there such a huge difference between the cost assessments from the two companies? And as we peeled the onion back there, we realized that Amazon's assessment was very broad. Let's assume 20% is large, 20% is extra large, 20% is medium, and so on. Whereas with our product, he had gotten a one-to-one mapping. So the point we're trying to make here is that sometimes people do rough assessments and move forward with the transition, but you will not realize that sometimes there's huge variances in costing that can come and surprise you after you've done the move. So very important to do this one-to-one mapping. What we did observe working with this cloud architect at Apache Corp was when we started working with him, there was a great deal of confusion, a lot of questions that were unanswered in his project, a lot of frustration. But as we continued working with him towards the end, when he got that output, he had complete clarity. There was a great deal of confidence in the case that he had made. And so then he went back to his management and, with a very confident decision. We are continuing to work with him, and we are doing some more expansions within Apache now. So this is just a real-world example of how important it is to be able to do detailed cost assessments and planning prior to migrations. So that is it, and I do see some more questions coming in. If you all have any questions at this point, feel free to submit them, and Gautam will get started with answering some of these questions. Okay. One question that we answered privately was, does AIM support Solaris Spark operating system? So the answer is yes, it does. We are able to model any machine. All we need is the configuration information and the usage information. The difference is with some of these older machines like Solaris or the IBM systems, the discovery has to be manual. So our automated discovery currently works with VMware, Hyper-V, and a few other more common platforms these days, but for the older machines, the discovery has to be done manually, which is not a problem. We can help you with it. Another question is, you mentioned right sizing. How do you do the right sizing?
So right sizing. So we look at every configuration of every machine, a virtual machine. We also look at the utilization of CPU, memory, and disk over 1 year period. We look at the average utilization. We look at the peak utilization as well. We actually model off-peak utilization. So that's how we do it. So based on, let's say, if you have 4 CPU cores and at 2 gigahertz each, then by definition you have 8 gigahertz of compute cycles. And we actually map by compute cycles, not by the number of cores, because you have different classes of CPUs in the clouds. So we know what's the standard CPU cycles available in servers, available in Amazon or Google or wherever. And then once we know how many cycles are configured and how many is actually consumed, we're able to map to the number of the nearest number of cores, and as a result, the nearest shape as well. And we do that for CPU, memory, and mainly CPU and memory. And if it fits there, then of course storage is always, you can always add block storage to your server, so that's kind of not counted during the mapping. Storage is an added element.
Okay.
Right.
So there are some also questions about pricing. We will answer them individually to you. At this point, because there are no more questions, we're concluding the webinar. Feel free to contact us if you have any more questions, and definitely visit our website and look at all the resources available there.
So let me take a bit on the pricing itself, right? So pricing is basically based on each virtual machine that you map for. The list price is $30. We do have discounts based on volume, and you would. That's it. That's how the pricing is done.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, everybody, for joining. This webinar is being recorded, and we will email the recording to you. And have a wonderful rest of the day. Bye-bye.